What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Conversation Station. This episode, I'll be reviewing DC's Peacemaker on Max. It's a great show based on John Cena's Peacemaker from the 2021 movie Suicide Squad. We should get a second season soon. I believe it's been postponed just due to the amount of DC movies coming out and everything going on. I think they just want to make sure they get the story right, but hopefully we get the announcement for the second season soon. If it's not already out, I may have just missed it, but hopefully it will come out soon. Now, the show is fantastic. I mean, that's just get that going right out of the gate. It's action-packed, it's hilarious, it's emotional, and it's just a great ride. It's full of great actors, and honestly, nothing was left like on the floor by the end of the season. I feel like they wrapped the whole season up extremely nice. The storyline in this season was about them catching an alien race called the Butterflies. I googled it, and it's not a storyline in the DC comics, so it may just be straight from the mind of James Gunn or possibly one of the other writers. Or I believe James Gunn is both writing and directing this show. So yeah, it's definitely a different kind of storyline. These butterflies are taking over the world. Amanda Waller is sending Peacemaker to try and stop them. Peacemaker is essentially not released, but allowed to take on this butterfly invasion after the events of Suicide Squad, after being shot in the neck by Bloodsport. He obviously goes through a issue with killing after not being able to kill the girl in Suicide Squad, and subsequently getting shot by Bloodsport and having a building fall on him, and somehow he only ended up with a broken collarbone. His best friend Eagly is a awesome addition to the show. It's just, honestly, it's a little bit of comedic relief, but Eagly has some really badass scenes where he just kind of fucks people up and does his cool thing as a sidekick. Peacemaker also has Vigilante watching his back, played by Adrian Chase. It's Adrian Chase, but that's Vigilante, and it's played by Freddie Stroma. And Jennifer Holland is Amelia Harcourt, and Robert Patrick is Augie Smith. Augie Smith is Peacemaker's father, an extreme racist and a supervillain by the name of the White Dragon. Now, he's a super genius who was able to build a quantum unfolding storage area that also leads to a dimensional nodule outside of normal space. So he's a super genius. Put Peacemaker through extreme trauma, leading to Peacemaker's essentially vow to attain peace, no matter how many men, women, or children he had to kill to get it. It's just, he's trying to fix the sins of his father, and as well as his own sins. And, he has a traumatic past of ending up accidentally killing his brother. And, it's just a really sad storyline with, how even there's a short moment where him and his father are barely, bonding over the fact that Bloodsport's dad locked him in a chest or a closet full of rats. And, they're like laughing, and like just this quick second of them getting along, and it immediately fades away. And, of course, Robert Patrick's character asks Peacemaker, like, oh, that loser who with the rats wasn't the guy who shot you, was it? And like that immediately just ends all the good feelings. And just, you could tell in that scene that definitely Peacemaker will never live up to his father's expectations, just because his father's a terrible person and does, racist things and terrible things, and Peacemaker's trying to make up for the terrible things that he's done. So obviously there's a huge fight and struggle throughout the entire season of that, and it leads to some pretty amazing scenes with both Robert Patrick and John Cena, as well as Vigilante. Vigilante has some really cool scenes with him as well, and just some really funny scenes, but he's also extremely badass, and there's just a lot of really cool Vigilante scenes that, honestly, I hope we get a lot more Vigilante in season 2. I hope not so much backstory, but just more fighting, because he's just so cool to watch, and he's just so fun. It's awesome. There's a small newspaper in Peacemaker's apartment that reads, "New hero Peacemaker apprehends Kite Man." So, little reference to Kite Man, obviously not the animated show, but there is a Kite Man in the DC universe. So that was kind of cool. There's also a mention of Batmite and Dollman. And not too long ago, I picked up this comic with Shadowlass and Dollman. So that was kind of cool. I never heard of Dollman mentioned until then. So that was kind of cool. Essentially, Peacemaker and his dad fight, and his father ends up dead. And, spoilers, I apologize, but I'm sure anybody watching this review has already seen the show. But it's, a lot of emotional stuff happens in between there, and honestly, I could tell you critical points in the show, and it couldn't spoil it because everything emotional and crazy leading up to all the things that I'm explaining is just so much part of the ride that it's one of those you just have to be there kind of things. We got Adebayo, who is Amanda Waller's daughter, and she is played by Danielle Brooks, and she is pretty apprehensive of getting on, being out in the field, and you could tell she really didn't want to do it, and she obviously is kind of like not blackmailed but arm twisted into it by her mom, Amanda Waller. And she's trying hard just to get back home and have a regular normal life with her her wife and her dogs and just enjoy her life. And that's essentially the whole season is her wanting to go home. But something I knew from the beginning is like she's Amanda Waller's daughter, so I know even though she says like, oh, I've never killed anybody, I'm not cut out for this, like I know she was trained to some degree, because I know Amanda Waller would not put her daughter out there without some type of training. And in the end, we do get to see it because Adebayo does get basically hero up and says I was made for this shit, and goes in because she was the last one, she's basically the last one left. So just really cool scenes. I feel like everyone kind of gets their moment. John Economos gets his moment with a chainsaw, and that's all I'm going to say on that. And that, even though it's a quick fight scene, it's really cool. So if you haven't seen Peacemaker, I would 100% recommend it. If you've seen it, like I have 2 or 3 times, I mean, as well as I do, it's just a fantastic show. I feel like even if you're not really into comic book and superhero stuff, this is one of those shows you can you'd watch it anyway, just because of the dramatic grittiness and the hardcoreness of it. Just kind of sometimes you kind of forget that it's about superheroes and stuff until it's all you don't forget, but it's just such a good show that there's a lot of really good drama, really good comedy, and John Cena just does a great job as Peacemaker. Hopefully he gets to be in be Peacemaker for as long as they'll have him, and hopefully they get him in some really cool stuff. I would just love to see him included in any way possible. At the end of the season, we see I'm sure everybody's seen this by now, but you've seen the cameo of the Justice League, and only Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller are the only 2 who are like actually show face. So clearly they're the only 2 who are like there. But yeah, the whole Justice League shows up after the events of everything, and that is just kind of cool. Those little nods and those little references are what I enjoyed about the show. Obviously it wasn't the full cast, but it was still cool to see them show up and just have those jokes, and Peacemaker making jokes about Aquaman fucking fish and all that other stuff. It was really fun, and like stuff like that just keeps it in those like silly comic book roots. That's the kind of stuff I love. But honestly, my favorite scene is probably John Cena not dancing, but like in the house, reliving his past trauma to House of Pain, and just going through memories and stuff like that while other stuff is happening to the team as well. I really feel like that, to me, is like my favorite scene out of the whole show. It's just extremely powerful, and it showcases a scene that without words, just music and, you're seeing the scenes that we're showing, and we're showing 2 different sides of a coin. Both the past of somebody and the current state of trying to deal with that past, and as well as everything in the present. It's a really insane scene. It's really sad, but it's really cool, just because of how emotional it is and how vulnerable it seems. John Cena seems in those moments. I really enjoyed the show, and even after killing his dad. His dad's still in his head, popping up as a hallucination. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they play into that in season 2. I would like his dad's genius to be explored a little more, and him to explain about the helmets and how his dad either became so smart, if it's just by chance, he just happens to be a genius, or if there's a reason for it. And whether or not he gets his the helmet of levitation back. Just a lot of fun questions, little storylines that hopefully we get answers to, and I definitely want to see more. Like I said, if you haven't checked the show out, I can't recommend it enough. Recently I was lucky enough to be followed by John Cena on X, so that was kind of cool. It's kind of cool to be doing comic book stuff and get a follow by somebody who's in the comic book stuff. So that's just kind of cool. I really do appreciate that. But I appreciate anybody who spends time watching my videos, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.